You have questions about stuff that happens before you actually start writing your screenplay, and I'm about to get into some of those more often asked questions, like how do I become a screenwriter? Am I too old or too young to be a screenwriter? What about software or story models like Save the Cat or Hero's Journey? And the mother of all questions before anyone starts scripting, where do I start? Number one, how do I become a screenwriter? And on the surface, this seems like a complicated question, but the reality is the first thing you do is you decide to become one. That's it. I mean, now, of course, there are a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot of things that you have to do and to learn to move you from where you're at to where you want to be. But the first step is you have to make a decision to become a screenwriter. But realize that that decision comes with a lot of tag-alongs. And if you decide to be a screenwriter, you are agreeing to a host of other things. And let me be clear, writing a screenplay doesn't make you a screenwriter any more than playing in one soccer game doesn't make you a soccer player, or driving a car doesn't make you a race car driver, or painting a picture doesn't make you a painter. You will have written, you will have played, you will have driven, you will have painted, but there is a vast difference between a novice and a professional. And that's what we're really talking about when we say become a screenwriter, because being a screenwriter requires a professional mindset. If you just want to write a screenplay, I mean, then just go write one. It probably won't be that good, but it doesn't matter. You'll still have written one, but that doesn't make you a screenwriter. The decision to become a screenwriter is one that means you are deciding to sacrifice time and money and energy to move you from your current status as a novice towards screenwriting mastery. And being a screenwriter means you are approaching the craft of screenwriting like a professional would approach it, even if you aren't doing it to make a living at it. I mean, maybe, hopefully, you're going to sell a screenplay, but to get there, you have to approach screenwriting as a profession. You have to put in the work. And of course, if you want to ultimately sell that screenplay and another, okay, then yeah, you've got to take the time to learn the pieces of story, the craft of storytelling, the skills of writing a marketable screenplay, and then learning how to market that script to have a chance at selling it or at it being optioned. But you becoming a screenwriter, well, that just starts with a decision to start walking the path. It's a journey, it's a commitment. And if you aren't all in, then you're kind of all out. Now you may be saying, okay, Jake, but I'm all in. I just don't know where to start. And I totally get that. I mean, I was where you are at like 20 years ago. And if you just want some practical steps outside of making that decision, here's some things that you can do. Study and learn the pieces and fundamentals of what a story is. Study and learn the tools and techniques available to you in regard to storytelling in screenplay format. Okay, story and storytelling are different things, and you have to learn the fundamentals of both story and of storytelling. So put some focus toward learning those elements. Study and learn screenplay format. Read books, read screenplays, and watch TV shows and films. Lots and lots of TV shows and films. Reading scripts and watching content with the intent of learning is immensely helpful. And practice writing scenes and dialogue, movie shorts, sequences, all the pieces you have to be good at to craft a well-told screenplay. So if you've made the decision and you're looking for a place to start, choose one of those and go. You know, I also have some playlists on this channel geared toward beginning writers, and those will also help you out. But if you want more focused help, or if you know you're all in and you're ready to get there, be sure to check out the links below that may be of benefit to you. And if you're committed, I'd suggest starting with the Screenwriting Fast Track, as that will get you on the right path to learning the craft of screenwriting much faster, and it includes nearly everything I just mentioned in the to-do list. So if you want to have a solid screenwriting foundation, the Screenwriting Fast Track is what you want. Number two, am I too old or too young to be a screenwriter? Your age doesn't matter unless you want to work in TV. Now, ageism is a thing in Hollywood, and even though efforts are being made to reduce it, it's still a thing, especially for TV shows, because networks have this idea that young writers will write stories that connect more with their ideal demographic. The problem is that the network's ideal demographic isn't watching network TV, and the networks are starting to realize this. But still, if you're not in your 20s, it's hard to break into TV writing and work your way up. However, if you have some other credits, or you just have a banger TV pilot and idea for a show, your age doesn't matter at that point. Good ideas and execution do rise to the top of the pile. But what about for film? Well, again, it doesn't matter. No one is even meeting with you until they have read your script and really like it, or they like your writing. And they're meeting with you to find out if you're okay to work with or if you're going to be a problem. Age isn't an issue unless you, as a writer, make it an issue, which usually happens as a result of immaturity or lack of experience. So here's the thing. Writers on the young side don't always know how to navigate the emotions and egos of executives, much less how to keep their own emotions and ego in check. So it is a bit harder for younger writers, but not if you write a great script and you're easy to work with and get along with. Older writers tend to navigate these waters a little bit better, and there are several stories of writers in their 50s or 60s who are only now selling their first things. The problem older writers deal with is their language and dialogue may seem a bit dated and stale, and they act a bit more entitled or desperate, or a combination of those, and neither of those go over very well. But in the grand sum of things, there is no age limit restriction, especially for film. But you do have to be able to write a solid story, and you have to be someone others enjoy being around, because you add value to them as people. You make others better. And if you can do those things, you're good. Okay, just keep your ego and emotions in check. Don't act entitled or desperate, and just be a good person. And you'll be fine whether you are 17 or 77. Number 3, what's the best software to use? The short answer is whichever software you find the most helpful. You'll hear, though, people say, oh, you've got to have Final Draft because that's the industry standard. No, it isn't. The industry standard is a PDF. And any screenwriting software, even some of the free ones, will export a PDF without any watermark, and you can submit that script if someone wants to read it. But you should be using screenwriting software if you're wanting to be a screenwriter. There's really no excuse to not. There are several free versions out there, so pick one and try it. But if you're gonna be a screenwriter, you're gonna have to invest in the craft, and that includes software. So here's my recommendation for you. First, use some free software. Write an entire screenplay, perhaps revise it a few times, and know you're going to keep pursuing screenwriting. But once you know, okay, now spend some money and invest in some software. Personally, I use 3 different software packages. If I'm just noodling with something, I'm trying an idea, or even practicing writing a specific scene or a random thing, I use Writer Solo, which is a free version of Writer Duet. It's a great free software, and it does everything I need it to do. The newest software that I've added to my own mix is Arc Studio Pro, and I'm currently using this for planning purposes and first drafts. There's a great tool within Arc Studio Pro called the Plot Board that lets you plan out your script, your story beats, character beats, subplots, and a few other things, and it's easy to go from this outline to a script. And if you're interested in Arc Studio Pro, there is a link below that will give you $30 off for the first year. It is a subscription service, which I'm not personally always a fan of, but I really love the Plotboard tool, so it's worth it to me. But if you want some money off and you want to use Arc Studio Pro, use that link so you get the discount. And then for my subsequent drafts and polishes and finalizing, I use Fade In Pro. And I've used Fade In for about 12 or 13 years, and I highly recommend it. It's a one-time fee. Every software update is free for you. Plus, it has some functionality on tablets, things like that, if you like that kind of thing. So that's what I use, but use what works for you. If you're interested, I've put links to all 3 of the software packages that I use below, including the link for $30 off for the first year of Arc Studio, if that's of interest to you. Number 4, when planning my story, which is the best story model to use? Save the Cat, the hero's journey, the story circle, something else? Well, this answer is actually complicated, but I'm going to oversimplify it to deal with it here. Writing a screenplay requires 2 equally important skills, which I noted in an earlier question: being able to craft a functional story and being able to tell it well. So story and storytelling. The issue with story models is they blend elements of story and elements of storytelling together into one model. And if you don't know which is which, then your idea of what a story is or how to tell it, well, that just kind of becomes a little skewed. And you have to understand that you will never be a good screenwriter if you can't differentiate between elements of story and elements of storytelling. So using any of the models is in many ways going to delay your learning of the craft, because you begin to think that a dark night of the soul is a story beat that you must have in every story. It isn't. It's something unique to Blake Snyder's Save the Cat. That's a storytelling element, and not every story has it. So which is the best story model to use? Well, honestly, none when you're learning. They just delay your learning of the craft. But some of you may not care about how long it takes you to find screenwriting success. So if you don't want to take the time to learn story and storytelling as specific areas of focus, and you're just wanting to use a story model to write a screenplay, then I'd suggest this very broad suggestion. If you're trying to write an action adventure or horror, use Save the Cat. If you're writing a sci-fi or superhero type story, or even a fantasy kind of story, use The Hero's Journey. If you're writing a drama or a mystery or thriller, use Dan Harmon's Story Circle, and that will get you started. But if you want to actually learn the difference between story and storytelling, study story first. And yes, a shameless plug, I do have the complete guide to story structure, which is linked below. I wrote it because every screenwriting book that I've read mixes story and storytelling elements, and I wanted to make it easier for you. It's less than $10 if you're interested, and like other things, it is linked below. The next question, you're finding value in this video and you're wondering how you can show your appreciation and help others find this channel. Well, you can hit some of the buttons below for starters. Subscribe if you haven't. Drop comments below about how this video has been helpful to you, or even share this video or a clip of it on the social media platform of your choice. And if you just want to straight up support me, which I really do appreciate, even for a couple of bucks a month, you can do that through Patreon, and there's a link below for that if you're interested. Plus you get access to a lot of my old videos, archive videos, and some other things that may be of interest to you. And before I get to the mother of all questions, where do I start if I want to write a script? Let me say that I'm really thankful for you watching and for any interaction that you engage in with me and with this channel. So thank you for doing those things and for helping grow this channel. I couldn't do it without you, and I love helping others find success, and I'm grateful that you're along for the journey. And if you've got a question about screenwriting, drop that in the comments below too, or you can send me an email if you like. And honestly, it's those questions that you ask of me that spurred this video. And I'm planning to do a few more like this one at the beginning of each month for the next few months, because I've got a lot of questions that I want to work through, and if I had included them all in one video, it would have made the one video way too long. So I'm just kind of breaking it up. So if you have a question about the craft of screenwriting or about story or storytelling in general, ask away and I'll try to work them into a future video. Last question, number 5, where do I start if I want to write a screenplay? And you will get a variety of answers to this question depending on who you ask. A common response, sadly, is just start writing. And that's the dumbest advice ever. You don't even know if you have a story, where you're going, or even if your idea is viable. So do yourself a favor and don't listen to the just start writing advice. Again, it's dumb, and the reason it's dumb is because it's a waste of your time. Another common response to where do I start is going the other direction, one that sets you up to spend a lot of time writing about stuff that will never see the light of day in your screenplay. Things like write 10-page character bios for every character, or super extensive and convoluted planning outlines that no actual writer ever uses. So if you think you have to write pages and pages and pages of stuff that isn't working on your story or your screenplay, ignore that advice too. The best strategy I've found to help my students learn to write a screenplay is to start with the definition of story and then fill in the blanks. So a story is about someone who wants something badly and is having trouble getting it, and they get it or they don't. So before you start writing, you must absolutely know what those blanks are. Someone, the main character, okay, you got to know who your main character is, that they want something badly. What is it that they want? Okay, and it must be a tangible, measurable goal. We have to be able to see them get it. How are they having trouble getting it? Like, what's in their way? Now, usually this is the antagonist, but what are 3 or 4 obstacles they must overcome to get the thing that they're pursuing or not? And then you've got to know whether the main character gets it or not. And then what happens as a result of them getting it or not. So yes, there's a few other things to know and figure out that make this process a bit easier, but if you at least have these things, you know you have the bones of a story. But there's one more thing you should do before you start writing, and that's craft a log line for your story. No, you aren't trying to sell the thing right now. This log line is for you, and just only you. You're crafting it to see if you can encapsulate your idea into an interesting sentence or two that, if you tell anyone, they are immediately curious about your story and they want to know more. And if you have a viable story and you can encapsulate its idea to others in a memorable logline, okay, now you can start planning the story and working on the script. And these two things give you a better shot at having a solid story and telling it well. And yes, ultimately, you'll have to have a logline to try and sell your screenplay. But having a direction and knowing you have one that is compelling to others before you start writing are great tools. Personally, I don't start writing a script if I can't come up with a compelling logline, because I know if I don't have a compelling logline, I'll never be able to get that script in front of people. Loglines are critical to your screenwriting success. And if you aren't sure how to write one, you can watch this video right here. Don't forget about all the fun buttons and the links below that can help you on your screenwriting journey. And when you tell a story that matters. See you later.